Dominion sets the standard in the industry for quality and gets your belt to you quickly because they're in stock. Dominion Strength Training solved a problem in the strength training industry. Before Dominion, you could get quality, but you had to wait months for your belt. Or you could get a bad belt fast. But why buy a bad belt? If you don't have a belt yet, pause the podcast right now and go to dominionstrengthtraining.com and buy an amazing belt right now. After squat shoes, it's the #1 most important piece of equipment you'll ever wear in every single workout. If you have a 3-inch belt, get a 4-inch belt. If you have a 4-inch belt, get a 3-inch belt. I have both. I use both in every workout. If you've never tried a lever belt, say hello to the convenience of easily tightening and loosening your belt between sets with a snap. They sell lever belts and prong belts, water buffalo belts. I have one of those that look unbelievably sharp. Single ply belts and suede belts. They also sell leather lifting straps, a leather deadlift jack, and a dip belt strap. And for a limited time only, Dominion is offering 15% off their products with code LOGIC. That is the largest discount they have ever offered. 15% off their products with discount code LOGIC. Go to dominionstrengthtraining.com and use discount code LOGIC, LOGIC, for 15% off. Go get a beautiful water buffalo, lever belt, prong belt for 15% off today. You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show. You're listening to the Barbell Logic podcast. I'm Matt Reynolds. I'm here in my library with Andrew Jackson and Nikki Sims. Welcome
Good morning
to the house and the show.
Good morning.
Good to be back.
Welcome to Springfield. We are here for the Block Staff Conference, what we call the Block Party. And we're hosting it at the house this year, which should be a lot of fun. And so we're setting up. Got a brisket on the smoker right now. Made some potato salad this morning. It was good. And yeah.
Do you put celery in your potato salad?
No. Celery, I hate celery. Let me explain. I love the flavor of celery. But the actual stringy celery stalks, not interested.
You know what's cool, though, is if you take a peeler to your celery.
And just shred or whatever.
Or you actually just peel, like what you would peel a cucumber, you just peel the outside layer, and it like totally gets rid of the stringy bits.
Oh, I didn't realize just the stringy is just on the outside?
I think so, yeah.
Interesting. I use a lot of celery salt and stuff.
I think you've made a good celery salt cocktail for us before.
Yes. Yeah, like a good gin, sage, celery. It's like a fun like lemon thyme thing.
I'm looking forward to the hot sauna that we're about to have everywhere
in Springfield because it's been 100 degrees
and
every
it just
day.
rained. There's like an inch of standing water right now.
It has not rained in like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And it rained all night. We got incredible rain. We needed it so bad. It's actually not. It's pretty cool right now.
It is now, but it's going to get up to
72 degrees.
90.
Yeah, tonight it's going to be toasty and very humid tonight. By tomorrow, most of it'll be burned off and it'll be dry again. But for the pool party, which is great. So at least we got a pool to go into. So I wanted to talk a little bit. I was thinking about this. I just came back from family road trip to Colorado, and I was thinking about chaos and people who live their lives. Their lives are like just marked by chaos all the time. And we've all been there before where, there are times that that's completely out of your control. Like life is in a situation where there's whatever, like major life changes, I don't know, lawsuits with your mentors, who knows, whatever that might throw you into chaos. And so you go into this like, a life of chaos. But I also know that over the last several years, we've all worked together now for, a decade at this point, really. And so I've watched you guys, I know you've watched me, try to build habits, sustainable habits and patterns in my life that remove the chaos and sort of bring order to the chaos in my own life. And so I want to talk about that because for me, when my life is chaotic, chaos is equivalent to stressful. It is extremely stressful. And probably more so for me, if you've ever done the personality exams on like understandmyself.com, Jordan Peterson's, or any of the major personality tests, I am wired for order. And you guys were making fun of me last night. We were having dinner last night. You're like, my checklist for this weekend is sort of like down to the minute.
Detailed.
Yeah.
It's like when you're going to go to the bathroom.
That's right. You got 10 minutes to poop. And it's from this time to this time. And I just tell my bowels it's time to go. Right. And so, and it sounds crazy and it sounds OCD and maybe it is on some level. But for me, it doesn't take up the bandwidth in my brain to go like, okay, I've got to juggle there's 200 things to do before everybody gets here in town. I'm like, it's on the sheet. It's on the Google sheet.
Right.
And so that's certainly not the only way to bring order to chaos, but I want to walk through that a little bit. One of the things I've noticed for me as I've gotten older over the years, I'm obviously super extroverted, verbal processor. I need alone time now, like legit alone time. I love my family. I wouldn't spend time with my wife more than anybody else on earth. But I really love a night in a hotel room all by myself. Getting some work done. Like, I just like total solace, you know? And my house, I've tried to set my house up that way. And you guys have been here lots of times. Our house is a place of solace. It's not crazy. I don't let it be crazy. We don't have a video game system down in the living room. I don't let my kids play like ridiculous, crazy music on the Alexas or whatever. Like, it's chill because I want it to be a place of solace. So, Nikki, I'll start with you. So can you go back to a time when either life was just chaotic or you felt like everything was stressful? And then what are some of the things you've done in your life today to sort of, because like if anybody that follows you on Instagram knows, you really value your time and like going to the beach, being outside, getting in the sun, going for long walks. Like these are things that you do that bring order to chaos for you. And so give us sort of a juxtaposition of what it looked like when it wasn't that.
The times that come up for me that were really chaotic is when my living situation wasn't squared away. Obviously, that's a huge point of stress. So like when I moved in Atlanta, I needed to move out of the house I was in, and I needed to move out like yesterday. So that was really stressful to find a place to live. I had 2 cats and a dog, like so stressful. And I remember when I first moved to San Francisco years ago, I just had to stay in an Airbnb in Chinatown, and I had 2 cats, and I had to be out by a certain time, and I could not find a place to live.
Oof.
I was so stressed. I ate like a bag of jelly beans every day. I put on like 15 pounds. It was the heaviest I'd ever been because I was so stressed out. So like finding a place where I love to live really provides a lot of order in my life, and making sure it's a place where I can be myself, be at home. It's clean. Like I did the Marie Kondo Sparking Joy thing. That has been a really wonderful way to just feel really organized and just have in front of me what I love. And then my training routine provides a lot of order. I think that's really important. And just knowing what I love to do and not really being apologetic about it.
Yeah, sure. I hadn't thought about this until you said it, but chaos for most people is survival mode. That's really what chaos is. Like you're just trying to get through the next moment. It's not about tomorrow or even tonight or what I'm doing for dinner. It's like, how do I live through the next hour? How do I live through the next moment? And man, that's stressful, right? And there are times where you can't, it's completely out of your control. But I would argue, and what I hope to do with this podcast is for the vast majority of people listening to this, you have some control over that. You can create order over the chaos, right? And so we have people in our lives who have, young children, friends of ours, people at church, whatever, that are just like, you can see their entire life is just chaotic all the time. They're 30 minutes late to everything. They look sleep deprived. Their kids are screaming and punching each other in the face. And you can't always do, they're, you got 18-month-old kids, like that's what they do. But there are things that you can do to bring order to that. And for us, there was a big learning experience for us when we left public school teaching and started homeschooling our kids. Working from home. We went from being gone all day, like we're at school teaching, to I was working at Strong Gym. Rachel and the girls were here at home doing homeschool. And then when I left Strong Gym and started doing online coaching, and I was home. Now we're home all the time. And a lot of people would think like half of you are listening to this, you're like, that sounds great. And the other half's like, that sounds terrible. And for us, it was just about the adjustment of going like, okay, we can't live our life in chaos. And so it was that idea of, okay, we are going to have a schedule, a general schedule. It's not a schedule like I'm living on this week, right? I don't make my kids do that. I don't schedule my kids down to 10-minute sections or Pomodoros or whatever. But like the mornings for work, we get up, we don't sleep in, we work, we do schoolwork, we do regular work, we eat lunch together. The afternoon starts to slow down a little bit. And by mid-afternoon, we're done and we get to, it's family time or whatever that thing is. And so being able to set our life up like that has pulled us out of survival mode. And so that every day, and you wake up every morning and you're like, okay, this is the routine. And I think routine has a lot to do with bringing order to the chaos.
Well, yeah. I was also thinking chaos is going to happen. Like you said, things are going to come out of our control. But sometimes that's a place where you really learn a lot about yourselves and a lot about who you're with. But if you have, I think, certain things in order, then there's room for that chaos to occur where it doesn't feel like survival mode. It kind of feels like growth.
That's actually a really good point.
Like financially, like YNAB helped me a lot, where it's just like, cool, I can plan for chaos now.
Right.
I have certain things taken care of, place to live, and like a good support family friend network.
Yep.
And then it's okay if chaos happens.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be okay.
Because
And
the rest of
sometimes
life
that's
is
kind of
okay.
fun. Yeah.
As ordered. Yeah. Yeah. You know, this weekend we've got people here for 3-4 straight days. It's like, and I said this last year, it's like a 3 to 4 day wedding that you're planning for like this conference. And there's going to be chaos that happens. There's going to be stuff that goes wrong. But when everything else is planned out well, like, well, I can deal with the one thing. But when you don't have anything planned out, then that often snowballs into survival mode. So, Andrew, what about you? You've got times you can go back and go like, here's where life was chaotic and changes that you've made over the last several years to bring some of the order to the chaos in your own life.
Yeah, the primary thing I do is anchor my day around the things that must happen and prioritize that. So training is like a non-negotiable. I try to make sure that it's not a decision. I think a lot of people wait to decide if they're going to train for the day or something like that. But when things are actually chaotic, I tend to lower my standards. It sounds kind of like I joke about hashtag team jeans. But for me, that's a coping mechanism for when life is chaotic. I lower my standards for what I expect out of my training.
Yeah, so explain team jeans for
so
people.
Team jeans, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll notice every once in a while, it actually started when I was in the corporate world, and one of the peak chaos times of my life.
Team khakis.
Was team khakis back then.
Totally, team pleats.
I'd be in my, Costco shirt and khaki pants and dress shoes. I was a general manager for a factory. I bought a Rogue rack and a bar and had some plates, and I'd go out and deadlift in between meetings.
Right.
And I'd have my PowerPoint presentation like printed out. I'd be doing edits and stuff like that. And I carry that mentality. Prior to that, training was like this, sacred thing. I had to have the pre-workout routine.
Sure.
The clothes were picked out. Everything was very structured.
Yeah.
And I had very high expectations about what I was going to get out of the session. I had certain numbers I was trying to hit. And that was how my training went for several years. But then when work became busy enough, life got stressful and chaotic, I had to lower my standards.
Yeah.
I actually still was able to hit some PRs in my khakis. I pulled a 500-pound deadlift for 5 in khakis, no belt.
Right.
In the middle of a work, in the middle of a 14-hour work,
whatever.
day.
Yeah.
And I still do that to this day. There'll be days where the schedule gets thrown out of whack, it's chaotic, but I'm still going to train. I'm just going to get out there with whatever I'm wearing. Tends to work best on upper body days.
Right. Harder to squat in khakis.
It's harder, but I have done it.
I squatted in khakis the first day of student teaching, literally the first day of student teaching, and blew out the ass on my first day. I don't think I've ever told that story here. And then I had to go the rest of the day, so I had the button-up Oxford
Did you
shirt.
like tie a sweater around your waist?
And the PE teacher had to give me like basketball shorts that had been, from like the Lost and Found, like the massive basketball shorts below. So I had massive basketball shorts, elastic waistband, Oxford button-up shirt on top. So it was not good.
Good thing you're in Springfield.
Would not recommend. So it sounds like to me, one of the things that I noticed that you're saying is that even in the midst of the chaos, things that bring order for you are focusing on the important things over the urgent things, that the important things still must be focused on. And I think when we're in chaos or that survival mode, everything is urgent. It's one urgent thing after the next, right? Got to feed the kids, got to send the email, got to do the thing, got to drop off the, mail for this, or like whatever that is. It's just thing after thing after thing after thing. And you can't ever get to the spot where, and I think for me, this is one of the things that would mark my life, a chaotic life, is when I'm only focusing on the urgent and I'm not able to focus on the important. The important's what matters, right? Like, so even when I have a crazy day, if I get to spend good quality time with my family, I get to train, I get to walk in the morning with my wife, I get to eat good, high quality food, not fast food, not DoorDash. Like that's another one for me. Like I know when life is getting chaotic, it's fast food and DoorDash. It's not home cooked meals. It's not vegetables. It's not, those are things that mark a life of chaos for me. And so I can still, in the midst of kind of building on what both you guys said, I can still have chaotic things happen, urgent things happen, have sort of urgent or emergency business meetings, do all those things. But if I can still get in those things that are most important to me, the walk with Rachel, the home cooked dinner with my family at night, and then not work at night after dinner and actually spend time with my family, then even in a chaotic day, I can still have order. I still sleep better. When you go to sleep in the midst of chaos and urgency, my heart rate's 10 beats higher a minute, those things.
Yeah, one of the things I notice when life gets chaotic is that there's almost like this compounding effect where it feels like you don't have time to do the important things. because your brain is spinning on all the things that are urgent that you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But if you take the time to go on a walk, do your training, you free up a little bandwidth to usually realize that it's not quite as chaotic. Like you have more control to order your schedule than you might realize. There's always going to be times where, yes, you're just in survival mode, like you said. But I find that if I give myself a chance to take a pause and actually look at what's important and prioritize things, then it's not as bad as as it feels, at least.
Nikki, you take a ton of walks, and your walks are different, I think, than my walks. I'm actually jealous of your walk. You do your best thinking on a walk. When you need to think about something, deep level of knowledge sort of stuff, you take a long walk. I've talked about, I take walks with Rachel every morning. We do that to sort of set the schedule for the day. We reflect on yesterday. We talk about today. And so there's a lot of communication going on. And we've walked before. We've all like gone on business meetings, stayed in an Airbnb, and we go on a walk. And you're like, I'm going to walk ahead. Andrew, you and Matt stay back, and you guys do your chit chat
like
thing.
my
But
bodyguards.
that's right. And so, walk me through your walks. What's kind of going through your mind, or what's the goal of a walk like that for you?
So what happens with me when I go on walks or on hikes? I'll sometimes listen to a podcast or just music. It's the break from being in front of a screen that is really useful. It's being in nature, and it's controlling what is coming into my brain. Like I kind of reset when I listen to music. It's like a really happy place for me. So that kind of unleashes more kind of creative juices. Or just a podcast that, like Coaching for Leaders, is where I will usually have some breakthroughs, or this other one called The Art of Accomplishment. But it allows me to go into the place of deep thinking instead of just reacting. Yeah. And I do live in a really walkable place where I can just walk out my door and walk for miles and miles. And it's a great place. I don't have to think about it. I feel safe. It's warm. I'm in the sun. I'm not cold.
Like right now. In my 64
I'm in a
degree
blanket.
library.
So I think what I would encourage people to do if they want to try it, I was like, just get away from the place where you find you have to do the most reacting, which for me is in my office chair at my desk. And go get some fresh air, get into the sun, like move your body, and don't worry about like it needing to be a certain distance. Go until you finish enjoying it, and then come back.
Yeah, right.
Like it's just for you to have fun with. I think if it starts to become like a big thing, then that's not the point of it. Just let yourself breathe, really. You go on a lot of walks too, Andrew.
Yeah, similar kind of opportunity to clear my brain, try to prioritize. It actually had me thinking about a conversation I had a couple weeks ago with my mom and my stepdad about different types of brains. Actually, this came up with a friend of mine the other day, that some people have like a continuous monologue.
Do you have a continuous monologue?
And other people, there are people that have nothing.
Yeah, I don't understand.
They like called it the nothing box.
No. Yeah, I don't get it.
Like, and a friend of mine that I was just visiting last week has no internal monologue.
It's so weird to me.
Can you believe that?
No, I know. Scott and I talked about this once. I think he said Charity doesn't. He was like, can you believe that a human could actually not think about anything? I'm like, I'm literally constantly, not only am I having a monologue, I'm rehearsing how I'm going to communicate that to someone else at all times, whether I actually do or not. I'm like, how do I make this sound the best?
So the way I'm actually jealous. Apparently, he's researched this a little bit. It's something like 20% or 40%. There's some minority percentage of the population that has no thought. But it's not that. The way I perceive it is that they are 100% present with the moment.
Sure.
I don't think the thinking loops, they're often not productive.
Sure.
Sometimes they are. And when I go on my walks, I'm usually trying to work something out, but I'm trying to break the loops, because usually I'll just have these endless loops of thought that I keep repeating myself. And so for me, going on a walk is an opportunity similar to what you were saying, Nikki, to change perspective and try to change the environment to hopefully get myself out of that thought loop.
Sure.
Or see if I can get into the nothing box and actually just
hard, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I have a great exercise for that. It's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
I'm sure people have heard of this, but you make a list in your head of 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can feel, 2 things that you can taste, and 1 thing that you can smell. I like the last 2 when you're eating. You can like really enjoy the meal that you're having. But I love the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a great thing to do on walks.
This is where like mindful meditation stuff for me is really hard, but very valuable, where the focus is on your breathing, or like you're thinking about the feeling of sinking into the chair.
Mhm.
You're thinking about every breath. You're not thinking about anything else. And if you do think about something else, you're supposed to come back to exactly physically present with where you are. Like, exactly how does the chair feel on your seat bones? Can you feel the way it's pressing into your back? And can you sort of melt into the chair? Like, that's really hard for me because I always have that monologue going on. You know, it's not as hard, and why I love training.
Right.
A heavy set of squats,
Exactly.
I don't have that inner monologue going on in the gym. Like, very rarely, because it's like, I'm scared to get under the bar and do the set of squats. If there's a monologue, it's like, don't let this kill me, right? Like, you're 100% focused on the sets of the work that you have to do. And so get completely out of the business. I don't think
a lot of
business.
people, when they hear the word meditation, think about some like woo-woo, like Eastern, methodology, or focusing on your breathing or whatever. But all of the things we've just been talking about are all forms of meditation. And in my experience, meditation is simply choosing to focus your mind and your attention on something.
Yep.
It could be lifting. It could be going on a walk and doing your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It could be focusing on your breathing. You know, I've done transcendental meditation where you're repeating a mantra.
Yep.
But
What was your mantra? Can you share that?
No, you're not supposed to share your mantra.
Okay.
It's
That's
only
me.
Yeah. But all it is repeating a thought, and then what happens is like thoughts bubble up, and that's totally normal. And the exercise of bringing your brain, your mind back from whatever that thought is to your mantra, to your training, to your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That is the meditation, is bringing it back.
Yeah.
And what I'll notice, at least when I was doing a mantra-based meditation, is if I hadn't been doing it regularly, I would have to do several of those repetitions.
Sure.
And then over time, it would eventually quiet, and I would get to the nothing box. But it's almost like a mental flossing that you have to get those reps of controlling your brain and processing that scattered mind, because your mind can be chaotic, and that'll carry over into your life as well.
Yeah. Interestingly, this makes me think of a lesson that I just learned recently in lifting, kind of coming back from what I'll call persistent back pain, because I don't think I'm injured or anything. I just have a weird back right now. And there's such a challenge to not feel bad about where you are compared to where you were last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I opened up to my coach a bit about that. And she asked if I, was managing my expectations. And I was like, I think I am, but I was also in a really bad mood about it. So she was like, maybe you're not actually managing your expectations. And she kind of called me out on it, which I really appreciated. And I was like, what do I have to do to actually be okay with squatting 100 pounds, and not comparing that. And the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 actually really helps me, because just like, this is what I'm seeing, that's what I'm hearing. And I'm not thinking about, I need this to be 135 today. I need this. And if I can enjoy my music and lift, then I know that I am managing my expectations, because I'm just there training, and that's what really matters. So people, if you are doing that with your training, like, it is exhausting. And if you just let yourself be present in what you're lifting that day, like, feel the weight on your back, but don't compare that to something else. Just feel the weight on your back.
To me, that connects, we talk about PRs matter, and they absolutely do matter, but it's sort of like a metric, right? It's an indication of progress and getting stronger, tying back to that team genes and lowering expectations or being present with your training. If you get too wrapped up in the metric meaning something, or your identity being associated with that metric, it can sometimes force order that isn't, I don't want to say it, it's not order that's helping you progress.
Sure.
It can be something that you can aim at. It's useful, it's productive, but if chasing that number or associating yourself too much with that identity ends up creating those mental loops or distracting you from being present in your training, then it's not actually useful order.
Yep. Yeah, we've talked about for the last couple of years. I mean, this is ultimately the reason we train, is to improve your quality of life. And if chasing the PRs and making the line go up and to the right decreases from your quality of life, then you got to get some different PRs. You got to get some different metrics. And so, everybody should walk through the fire of strength training and get stronger at some point in their life. But, we've done a lot of podcasts lately, both here. I got interviewed by Brett McKay for Art of Manliness a couple days ago. And this is really what we talked about, because Brett's been training for 7 years and he's strong, and he didn't know if he even wants to hit all-time PRs anymore. Like, okay, that's totally fine, right? But the guy's deadlifted over 600 pounds. He's stronger than he's ever, like, anything life would ever throw at him, he can do. And so you're doing these things to improve your quality of life. And by the way, I would argue that for the vast majority of people, bringing some order to the chaos will improve your quality of life. That's really what this is about.
Right.
And so while I know that some people are wired in their personality to like order, and some people are like, I'm just a free spirit and I enjoy chaos, I would argue that nobody enjoys chaos all the time, right? Again, I meet people like this. When we first got into homeschooling, I was surprised at how many stay-at-home moms lived a life of complete and utter chaos. And I'm not talking about stay-at-home moms with 4 kids under the age of 4. I'm talking about stay-at-home moms with 4 kids that were between the ages of 16 and 12, where like the kids were old enough and capable enough to do work around the house and not be chaotic and not blare music. Like, you've just chosen to live that life. And so I get it. Everybody's life is a little different. And I'm not wired for chaos. So things that would bother me will not bother other people, and it's okay. But what I've learned is that for everyone, even for people like me who are very wired for order, it still has to be trained. It's a trainable thing, right? Deep work, like the staff was talking about Pomodoros this morning, right? That 25 minutes of deep work and 5, like you got to train that. It's the same thing, right? Like you're doing 25 minutes. I'm focused on this task at hand. I'm doing deep work. I'm reading a book or I'm doing a thing, like I'm 100% focused. And the same thing that you talked about that happens in transcendental meditation, like the little thoughts bubble up in your head about like, oh, what are we going to do for dinner? In a Pomodoro, you just got a piece of paper there and you write down dinner tonight. Boom. The idea is get it out of my brain. I don't want it in the, and so it can be trained. I did this with my kids. My wife for sure is way more sort of laissez-faire, like just like let it come. And she has learned too that like a standard routine, a standard schedule, her life is better. It brings quality to her life. She doesn't want to live every 5 minutes or 10 minutes scheduled out like I do. We're not going to be on that level of order, right? Like mine's a little OCD. My oldest at 17, though, who is really stuck. I mean, she literally is like the perfect combination of Rachel and I. And so she kind of like naturally wants to not have order, but then she just, when she does it and forces herself into order, she's like, this is so much better. I'm so much less stressed. You know, she's dealt with anxiety and things. And we've noticed that like those things bubble up when life is chaotic. And so I just think I want to be careful because I don't want everyone to live their life like they're in military school. That's not the goal here. I think it all comes back to the things that you pointed out, Andrew, about identifying the things that are really important in your life over the things that are urgent in your life and making sure that you have put a place in your day-to-day schedule where you can do those things that are important to you. So whether that's the walk or spending the time, good time with the family, like not crazy time with the family, or getting good deep work done for business or training or a combination of all those things, whatever those things are, I think that's what bringing order to the chaos is. And then Nikki, just like you said, chaos is going to come. Like that's just life. Like you can't have a perfect, or you can take this and swing the pendulum too far the other way where like every minute of every day has to be perfectly ordered so that when chaos comes, you're like, what am I going to do now? Like this is throwing me off. I'm 6 minutes behind schedule now. Like that's a problem. Right. And so, and I really don't do that. Like as much as you guys might look at the list and be like, you sure? I don't. Right. It's just more like, when it comes, like, okay, we've got everything kind of laid out and I don't have to worry about that. I can focus on the chaos because all the other stuff is taken care of. That's really what it is. And it's like, for me, it's when I feel like I'm mentally juggling, you talk about when you juggle balls, I don't know the juggle balls. When you juggle,
Wow.
To really juggle, you got to juggle like 3 balls, right? Not 2. Stay with me here. Let's grow up for a second.
I'm just laughing at your laugh.
You start juggling, and it gets much more complicated as you juggle, let's say 3 objects,
Right.
4 objects,
Sure.
5 objects, right?
Hammers.
At some point, you're like, man, I'm juggling like 11, 12 objects. You just got balls flying all over the place. Where did I have this? That's very chaotic,
Yeah.
and it's very stressful. Or, remember the guy on TV that used to spin the plates on the pencils?
Yeah.
And you get like 15 plates going. You're like, dude, I would be stressed out. I want to have an anxiety attack watching it on TV. I don't want to do that. I want everything else fine. And then if I have to spin a plate
Right.
or take one ball and throw it up in the air and catch it and throw it up in the air, okay, I can do that. That's not a big deal. Like that's really what it's about, I think, for me.
Chaos and order are always balanced. It's
Yeah.
yin and yang.
Yin yang.
They're evenly balanced. And there's also, if you notice in the yin and yang, there's the little dot, inside,
Yeah.
which is the other that's part of you.
That's
So
right.
there's,
Namaste, bro.
yeah, man,
Well, and Jordan Peterson would say like that's where the meaning of life occurs actually between the two.
right on the edge.
Meaning is on the edge, right?
Right.
It's that, I remember telling the story of like if you watch the Olympics or something, you watch a gymnast and she performs this incredible routine. It's just incredible. And she gets done with this routine. It's 9-4, 9-5, 9-6, like very, very good. And the next gymnast gets up and they outperform the gymnast before them. But the way they do that is because they're walking right on the edge of like what the human body is. I mean, right on the edge. Like they're literally taking the risk of flushing everything down the toilet. It's the Olympics. You're like, I'm going to walk the edge. Well, it's the edge where meaning occurs, right? And so as you pull back a little bit, you're like, I'm going to go in the safe zone. It's safe all the time. And like you lose some meaning there. And so there is some value to like walking that edge. Not telling people go play in the street or right next to the street, but like some of that is required. I mean, I think being able to deal with some chaos. And in the same way we talk about voluntary hardship versus involuntary hardship, like being able to understand the balance between those two things are really important as well. And so I think that's what we're trying to do with Order and Chaos. I think if you live a life of constant chaos, and if you're listening to this, you know who you are, and you're like, yep, that's my life. You can start to bring order to chaos. This again, that's why Jordan Peterson says, make your bed. Like, what does that have to do with it? Well, it's just like one tiny step that anybody can do. Rachel started making our bed 10 years ago. And for the first 15 years we were married, we didn't make our bed. Our life was a lot more chaotic. It's just a picture of just something that we do. And so I think you can take that first step, figure out what that first step is that's attainable and actionable, and do it, whether that's going on the walk or training in khakis. You find that thing that's important to you and say, look, I'm going to start here.
Can get a coach.
Getting a coach is a great idea because it brings accountability and consistency to your training.
And actually, recently, I've been getting a wave of clients who want to work with me because their way of training up until hiring me was either all in or none.
Yeah.
So the only way they knew how to train was they had a program and they would do it as it was written exactly.
Yeah.
Or none at all.
Right.
They didn't know how
work
to
straight 6% of the time.
They didn't know exactly. They didn't know how to take their training and fit it into how to order it in their life in a way that would fit when they had chaos would come into their life in the form of, especially now that things are starting to open back up.
Yeah.
Work trips are starting to happen again. Family travel.
Stress.
Non-training stress.
Right.
Yeah. Family travel's happening. People want to go camping. People want to travel, whatever. Work blows up. So what do you do when I need to move a workout a day or 2 days or 3 days? How do I change the program? And so trying to help people bring order in their training, even though there's external chaos, is something that a coach can help you with because they've experienced it. I've lived through so many different life changes, stresses, and had to modify my program in so many different ways that I can help somebody not be all or nothing.
Yeah.
It's okay. Going back to my very first point, like lower the standards essentially, lower the expectations because training and consistency in the long run is going to pay off a lot more.
I've noticed that people who are a bit more ordered use the phrase, well, once this happens, then everything will be okay.
That's exactly what this client was telling me. Is like, I would just get in this mindset where, well, if I couldn't do it perfect, then once fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Once I get done with this project,
once I get done with
this,
the next thing pops up.
Yep.
Exactly. And they're always thinking, oh, once that happens, everything will be fine.
Right.
And they just rely on this idea that they're not really doing anything about. And they're just waiting for something to make it better for them instead of making it better for themselves. And I think when you hear that phrase less, it indicates that someone is of a different mindset.
Yeah, I agreed. It's good. I got to thinking about this because we were on vacation on this road trip. It was an active vacation. I don't know if you guys ever think about this, about when you take time off, take vacations. You guys know because you've worked with me for years. Rachel and I, and my family specifically, we tend to take relaxing vacations. Like we go to the beach. We've got our routine. I get up in the morning. I do my online coaching. I go to the gym. I go to the spa. I go to breakfast. We go to the beach. And we lay on the beach all day and drink margaritas. That's what we do.
Interestingly,
come in, take a nap.
A relaxing vacation, you still have quite a bit of structure.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of structure.
A lot of order.
I
you're
have
still
to have
working.
order.
You're still training.
Making the point for me. The first vacation I went on with Rachel's family, we had been dating like a month. It's 1997.
Oh, wow.
The boyfriend she had just broken up with was supposed to go on that vacation. So there was already a bed for me. And so she's like, well, Matt's going to go. And we've been friends for 5 years. So our parents agreed to it. And it was a little awkward because we'd literally been dating for like 4 weeks. And we went to Washington, D.C. And we got in the car and started down the road. And Rachel's mom was like, you got the map? And Rachel's dad's like, I thought you had the map. She's like, I don't have a map. Why would I have a map?
For those
He's like, I don't have a...
You're not talking about Google Maps.
No, this is in the 90s.
Did not
It doesn't
exist
exist.
at the time.
There is no
there's no
GPS. There's no MapQuest.
I left it on the
she'd be
fax
do you have the
machine.
Rand McNally Atlas? And he's like, I don't have one of those. And she's like, me neither. I was like, yeah, we'll figure it out. And I was like, oh my God, what? We're just driving to Washington, D.C., like sticking our finger in the air? Like, what the hell are you? My dad is an engineer. Like, not only would my dad get a Rand McNally Atlas for himself, he would get one for all members of the family. He would highlight them all. He would teach us how to read them. Like, see, this highway is at exit 279, right? Which nobody knows that anymore. But my dad literally sat us down and we had lessons on how to read maps, right? We got state maps and everything. So to get in a car and Rachel's parents, like, we're just driving to Washington, D.C. Like, we're not sure how to get there, but I don't know. It's like, it's northeast.
Towards
like,
the water.
How hard can it be? If we drive east, we'll get there, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And so we do structure our vacations, both the ones that I would call extremely relaxing, which are basically surrounded by, laying on a beach and drinking margaritas, is still fairly structured. And we have the thing that we do. Like, I don't want to go out and go shopping at outlet malls on beach vacations. That's not what we're doing. But we just did a vacation in Colorado where it was a road trip. We took a road trip. Airfare's crazy expensive. We stayed in Keystone, but we went to a different town every single day, hiked, whitewater rafted, ate restaurant. It's still required. Like, we still need the structure to know. We don't go to bed at night. Like, we don't know what we're doing tomorrow. We know we're going to Vail tomorrow. We're going to get up at 8. We're going to have some breakfast. We're going to get in the car. We're going to drive to Vail, and we're going to do a hike. We might not know the exact hike we're going to do, but we know what we're doing. And so still is difficult for me when I've been on vacation with Rachel's family who's not like that at all. They're just like, I don't know, like, we'll figure it out tomorrow. I'm like,
I think that's kind of fun. I mean, I like having anchor points for order, but allow for chaos because that's where surprise happens. That's where the unexpected occurs. And it can be unsettling. Yeah. But if you have enough order that, again, like we've been talking about, you can create space for chaos.
I don't like surprises.
It can be
not
kind of fun.
I can see how that's me it's my butthole being a little too puckered.
Well, I mean,
so,
yes. I just had a trip where I ended up blowing out 2 tires, kind of chaotic back roads, fairly unstructured. And it was pretty stressful at the time. But now I have this ridiculous story from this tow truck driver who had a pet raccoon for 15 years and told us his whole life story. And it's like,
saw a man get shot in a bar. Like,
out of that chaos came a story that's pretty fun.
Yeah. I think if you feel safe that you're going to get what you want, or be okay with not getting it. If you feel physically safe, then it's okay.
Plenty of times, I've said many times on the podcast where I've kind of pooped on the idea of happiness. So I'm talking about like happiness is fleeting and it doesn't really last. And joy is kind of this thing that's more like long-term. And, like you can have joy even in the midst of chaos. Again, as I think about our friends who are living a life of chaos, I think, and as you're listening to this podcast, if you're like, man, I'm really stressed out and not very happy with the amount of chaos that's in my life, that is the call to change, right? Like, don't hear Matt being a drill sergeant and like, laying everything out like it's military school, be like, I should live. Like, if you're super happy with where you are and your schedule during the day and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, don't change a thing. But if you're living a life where you're like, dude, I like cannot get ahead. For me, if my life is chaos, I feel like I'm drowning, I'm suffocating, and I can't get my head above water. And like, I need somebody to reach out and grab me, like yank me out. Then you should make those steps, right? Like, I think for you, Andrew, if we went on vacation together and I was like super structured, you'd probably be like, dude, this is like, I need some freedom there. Maybe not, but I'm just saying like, that's personality specific.
Totally.
I don't think there's a right way or wrong way to do it.
I've never done a vacation like you've described with the all-inclusive and the sauna, but I would love to do that vacation.
It's a blast.
Yeah.
We love it. And it took a few times. We had to do it a few times to like figure the routine out. Yeah. And we have gone on vacation. We went on vacation with Scott and Charity years ago to one of our favorite all-inclusive places. And it was great. Worked fine. They don't do quite the same schedule that we did. We have our routine where it's like, this is what we do. I get up, I do online coaching. I go to the gym when it opens at 7. I go to the spa when it opens at 8. I meet my family for breakfast at 9, and then we go to the beach at 10.
Yeah.
You're like, that sounds really structured.
That sounds like the kind of vacation you'd come back feeling actually rested from.
Which is the point. You come back from vacation, and you're like, I need a vacation from vacation.
Exactly.
Too chaotic.
Exactly. And that's where I was after the one I was
after the 2 tire blowouts.
Yeah. I got done with that vacation and needed
now I need another
to recover.
Yeah. And whereas we did this vacation that was very active at Colorado, and we did do outlet mall shopping, and we did do, but because everything was really in a controlled environment, I came back being super ready for the block party, doing this weekend. I'm not stressed and tired and be like, I can't do this. I feel good about it. And so, that's the way we do it. That's a strategy that you can take with you, take it or leave it. I think for a lot of people, they live a life of chaos and they could make a few small changes that would bring a lot of order and a lot of de-stress and not living in that survival mode to their life with just a couple changes, right? With just, again, focusing on those things that are important to you. The thing that's important to you is not necessarily what's important to me or important to somebody else. Like, that's the point. It's like, figure out what's important to you. what brings you value, do those things. If you're caught up in constantly pursuing the urgent or drowning in the urgent, that I think is the red flag. So, excellent. You've been listening to another episode of the Barbell Logic podcast. Thanks for joining us, hanging out. We're going to have a great weekend this week with the Barbell Logic staff, and we will see you guys next Tuesday.
Bye-bye.